how's everyone doing? Like, it's afternoon, everyone's really quiet. Okay. Yeah, I'm so excited. Okay, I have no idea what's on my slides. I made them on an airplane last night, but it's gonna be good. So one of the topics that you've probably heard a lot about today, something we've certainly been thinking a lot about, is there are all of these new chains that are emerging. All of these chains are attracting a lot of value or aggregating a lot of value. But are we just replicating the same issues that we have in our existing market structures? So I wanted to spend some time just talking about what is liquidity, what is cross-chain liquidity, and what does this world that we're building look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So does that sound good? Yes? Okay, I have a lot of charts. I made a lot of graphs. It should be interesting. We will see. Okay, so disclaimer, not financial advice. Hello, compliance, I did it. Okay, so what I wanted to start with is just talking about what is liquidity. So I started my career on a trading desk. And one of my first days at work, I was asked this question. And I had no idea what to say. I think in the crypto space, when we talk about liquidity, there's a common misconception that liquidity means your coin gets listed on an exchange. But let's talk about liquidity. So Gordon Gekko, obviously, is where I got most of my Wall Street education before I actually worked on Wall Street. So one of my favorite quotes from the movie Wall Street is, I'm not talking about driving a fucking BMW. I'm talking about $50, $100 million liquid. So liquidity is the lifeblood of financial markets, of all markets, really. So we're going to nerd out for a little bit, and you're going to leave, and you're going to be an expert on liquidity. So why does liquidity matter? Liquidity is really about the trade-off between the price at which you can sell an asset and how quickly you can sell it. So what I've tried to visualize here for you is what a market looks like. There's the buy side of the book and the sell side of the book. The buyers are called bidders and the sellers are called the ask. Then there's a spread. The bid-ask spread refers to the spread in prices between what sellers and buyers want. And then where trades clear, right, it's that purple box, that's where trading takes place. That's called volume. And the spread of that box, or where trades clear at, is called the tightness of the market. So an asset that's really liquid can be sold really fast with minimal loss of value anytime within market hours, TradFi. But our markets operate 24/7, 365, so we're going to talk about that later. And in traditional markets, speculators and market makers play this role of providing liquidity. They'll come in on either side of the book and make sure that trades clear. The more liquidity you have, right, the tighter the bid-ask spread is, and lower liquidity will typically lead to wider spreads. So are we clear on liquidity? Yes? Okay, we're going to go with yes. So now you are an expert, my friends, on market structure. Amazing. So here's the issue, though. TradFi markets and GMI, they're not going to make it. And here's the reason why. Let's talk briefly about the trade life cycle, because this is another important piece to understand. So the way that a market works today, let's say I want to buy a share of Tesla, right? I like Elon Musk. He likes Dogecoin. He doesn't dump. He pumps. So here's what happens. I go onto my little platform, and I look at the order book, and I see the bid-ask spread, and I'm discovering price, right? This is a stage called price discovery. Then, if my bid gets hit because I'm buying, the trade executes. Now, the thing is, you only see those first two parts of the trade, but there's a bunch of stuff that happens after your trade is executed. Your trade gets cleared, which means that the counterparties actually communicate with one another, and that information that exists in these siloed databases managed at different brokerage houses communicate with one another. Maybe there's margin or leverage that's applied to your position. Then settlement actually happens, typically a day after the trade, where the actual shares move between accounts. And again, this is just zeros and ones in a database, but these databases are replicated at every different broker, so it's kind of a hot mess, and you have to make sure you don't fat finger a trade. And then lastly, there's reconciliation, which happens when the accountants and compliance officers look at the book and make sure everything's settled the way it's supposed to. The issue here, this is a data problem. The existing trade lifecycle that we have in traditional markets requires intermediaries, these brokers who facilitate your trades for you, to constantly move data around, right? Because the issue is this. What is crypto? All right, so Bitcoin, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin. I don't know if that's allowed, but that's what got me into crypto, so it's very sort of conceptual for me. So before money, right, before digital money, before Bitcoin, we had this thing called gold. It's a shiny rock, like literally it's a shiny rock that comes out of the ground. And what we would do, right, if I want to trade gold with you sitting here, hi, do you want to trade gold? Okay, so here's the thing. If I have a gold nugget and I give it to you, I no longer have a gold nugget, but you have the gold nugget. Because gold is a physical asset, has materiality, exists in the real world. Now, let's trade information. I have an idea, you have an idea. Do you want to trade ideas? Okay, we trade ideas. You now have 2 ideas, and I now have 2 ideas. This is an illustration of the double spend problem. And this is what our banking structure does today. This is what's happening in markets when trades are being cleared and settled all day, every day. We're moving a piece of data from one database to another, and we have to make sure it gets deleted in the database it was copied from and gets added in the database it was added to. Bitcoin's whole innovation is that we can use computation to create money that can't be double spent. Not a rock, not a bank, cryptocurrency. We're going to talk about why this matters. All right, so then what happens next? Bitcoin not only made computation into money, but it put a price on it. So the Bitcoin network is the world's most secure independent financial network. It supports $1 trillion of market cap, and it supports trillions of dollars of economic activity every year. Now, here's what's really interesting. The demand for block space on the Bitcoin network is a function of the demand for secure financial transactions. Ethereum then extended this concept by introducing something I like to call financial computation. Some people call it smart contracts, call it what you will. And now there's all these new L1s. I'm sure you've looked at some of them. You're going to hear from some of them throughout this conference. But they're introducing all of these different models for how you price network computation by offering different types of security guarantees or opting for certain measures of centralization. So, block space is a scarce asset. Demand for Bitcoin block space, which you see on the left here in the orange line, is cyclical, right? It typically tracks Bitcoin market cycles. The interesting thing is the demand for Ethereum block space has been persistent. Why is that? Because Bitcoin provides a very specific type of financial computation. Sorry, Ethereum provides very specific type of financial computation. And again, if we look at the pricing, right, Bitcoin transaction fees trend over time goes up. More demand than there is supply of financial compute, number go up. Same thing with Ethereum transaction fees. So here's what I think becomes really interesting, right? And it ties into why liquidity and compute go together. Blockchain compute in itself is becoming a fungible asset. So I'm going to take you back to my commodity trading days. For commodity to be tradable, right, for my gold to be tradable with you, I have to be able to move it around to where it's needed in a cost-effective manner, right? And when I can't move it around, I create a derivative or a synthetic that replicates the original but doesn't require me to move it. So the ability for us to move financial computation from one chain to another via bridging or layer 2s opens up the potential to make financial functions themselves fungible. Did your brain explode? Mine did, okay. Prior to that, the time that was required to build a specific application on a new chain would have defeated, right, any compute savings. But now with all of these L1s and L2s, basically what we have is a shit ton of demand for secure blockchain-based financial compute. And for the first time, we have all of these new chains and compute protocols that are able to support these similar types of compute in an easy manner. Are you still with me? Okay. You guys look like you're with me. And then obviously Zoolander, one of my favorite memes, the liquidity, it's in the computer, it's in the network. So we'll talk about what that means as well. So here's my question, and here's what I was really interested in exploring with you guys today. Can liquidity itself become a fungible asset? And I think the answer is yes. But let's go through the evidence, and then you can tell me what you think at the end. So there is no free lunch, right? So the objectives here, when we look at what's happening in cross-chain liquidity, there's 3 core objectives. We want to increase throughput. We want to be able to do more financial compute. We want to be able to do it faster by increasing the speed, and we want to lower the cost, right? We looked at the cost of transactions on Bitcoin, expensive. Cost of transactions on Ethereum, also expensive. But we also have to remember that when we make compromises for scaling financial compute, we're also making trade-offs, primarily in the dimension of decentralization and security. So what did we start with? Really, the first example of cross-chain liquidity was bridging the world of TradFi with the world of crypto, right? When Tether was first created, really the issue we had was we don't have the ability to use dollars on the same network as crypto. So what you see here is the top 10 stablecoins in the blue bars, and the orange dots are the velocity of those stablecoins, meaning how many times they change hand in any given day, right? So it's just the 24-hour market volume divided by market cap. Putting dollars on chain has created a ton of liquidity in the absence of prime brokers, banks, and other traditional providers of liquidity. The whole reason all of this got started is because nobody would bank the crypto space. Nobody would give us money, nobody would extend us credit, so we created it ourselves. The top 3 stablecoins that are highest by market cap are all centralized, right? So they're exposed to regulatory risk, which I think creates a lot of opportunity for new types of dollarized liquidity. And while the sheer volume of all of these stablecoins is impressive, 90% of stablecoin trading volume on a daily basis comes from Tether. So think about that, right? The utility really starts to matter here. And most stablecoins have very low velocity because they're used passively. All right, so then what did we do next? So we put dollars on chain. Then we started to move assets across chain. And really what I think is interesting here is Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin was the first, kind of the foremost, and my view is, the granddaddy. A bunch of people who hold Bitcoin and are net long Bitcoin looked at what was happening on the Ethereum network, and they're like, wait a minute, I have all of this Bitcoin over here, but I can't leverage the Bitcoin I have. It's not liquid. It's not fungible. How do I make it liquid and fungible so I can use this liquidity and collateral in this crazy world of DeFi? So enter wrapped Bitcoin. Over 1% of all Bitcoin in circulation is currently issued on the Ethereum network via a process called wrapping. 95% of that is custodial, but there are new models that are being worked on that are non-custodial. But this is really, in my view, the second sort of primitive for moving liquidity across chains. Does that make sense? All right, so then natural evolution, step 3, is what happened here. So bridging liquidity into layer 2. So all of the networks we've talked about so far, first we bridged TradFi to Bitcoin, then we bridged Bitcoin onto Ethereum, and now we're taking everything that's happening in Ethereum and bridging it into a ton of different blockchain ecosystems. There's currently $4 billion of Ethereum-based layer 2 total value locked, and what's really cool is, does anyone know what that big spike there is? Shout it out. Arbitrum. We'll get to Avalanche later. Arbitrum. So Arbitrum opened their bridge a week and a half ago. I remember it was a Friday night. I was an hour late to dinner because I had to bridge a bunch of ETH into Arbitrum and put it in a yield farm. But LT Solutions, what they do is they fully or partially derive their security from the base layer, right, from Ethereum, so that users don't have to rely on the honesty of validations happening in that network. And a ton of platforms are now pushing Ethereum activity to L2. Super cool, really exciting. Again, there are trade-offs. We haven't seen any major security flaws yet. I think it's only a matter of time, but we'll learn from them. We'll figure it out. It'll be interesting. And so here's what I take away from this. As I look at this evolution, in my view, in the future, all assets will become fungible across all chains. There's over 8 billion in TVL that has been bridged away from L1 Ethereum thus far, if we count things like Avalanche, Phantom, Solana, Harmony, and a bunch of other protocols that are absorbing some of that liquidity. And 2 billion of that happened in the last 20 days. This is exploding right now. What's even cooler is it's not just a small subset of users. Over 45,000 wallet addresses have bridged away from ETH. It's widely available, it's widely utilized, and as more of these bridges start to get built, we expect these volumes to grow. If I'm a whale and I have $1 billion that I want to smash into a yield farm, paying $150 of fees, fine. But if I'm an average user and I have $10 or $100 that I want to play around with, suddenly spending $50 on gas fees doesn't make sense. So I think it's really exciting to think about ease of use, availability, and speed, and how that can bring more users and more liquidity and more assets into this giant financial black hole we're creating, which is called crypto markets. So where does that lead us to? This is what the future looks like in my view. Today, crypto is a $2 trillion asset class. Of that, about 6% is stablecoins. This is our first example of bridging dollar liquidity into crypto world. About 1% is wrapped assets, which is taking things that exist on one chain and making them compatible with another chain, this process of wrapping. And around 7 billion, less than 1%, is in layer 2s and bridges. The demand for blockchain-based financial compute will exceed the available supply for the foreseeable future, in my view. Because anytime there is space, we will create new ways to create that computational space, use that computational space. And as the asset class grows, so will the migration of different types of assets across the ecosystem. And so what's really cool, again, going back to market microstructure, on the left, Liquidity 1.0 was boomers in blazers, right? This is your Virtus, your Citadels, your flow traders. Becoming a market maker in TradFi required you to take significant risk capital and to have adequate regulatory capital. It was a regulated function. Because market microstructure also varies by asset type, these firms specialize in very specific markets. You could be a commodities MM, you could be an FX MM, but is very specialized. And lastly, firms would gain their edge through proprietary order flow, their technology and infrastructure, and the relationships they have. But that world is the world that we, all of us, are going to kill. And the new world we're building is the world of Liquidity 2.0. Or I should have called it 3.0 to be consistent with Web 3.0, but whatever. Liquidity 2.0 is the degenerate apes, and I will call myself a degenerate ape. I don't know if you recognize any of these PFPs, but they're some of our favorite anon traders on crypto Twitter. So here's what's really cool and what I want you to take away. In crypto markets, literally anyone who holds a crypto asset and has an appetite for risk can become a market maker. So the universe of MMs and the universe of liquidity has been exponentially multiplied. Because all of these assets settle with finality to the network, liquidity is hyper-fluid, and it migrates really quickly. And we've seen this time and time and time again with liquidity jumping from yield farm to yield farm to yield farm to chain to chain to chain. And apes gain their edge not through relationships, not through a special sweetheart deal, not through some long-standing arrangement they have. It's market intelligence, it's your speed, and it's your tolerance for risk. And actually, in this new world, scale can sometimes hinder your edge, which is pretty cool to think about. So I'm very excited about this world. We are all market makers, you guys. We can all provide liquidity, we can create liquidity. And this becomes interesting, again, because this isn't just a crypto story. We are going to put the fun in financial computation. There is a fun in there. Okay, that's dorky. So basically, here's what's happening. There's this giant liquidity pool that's being created, right? And I show this little green dot. I can take my Bitcoin, I can wrap it and put it on Ethereum. I now have wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum. I can take that and bridge it into Connext, which is a cross-chain liquidity protocol, and I can get liquidity tokens that are usable cross-chain. I can bridge that into ClayStack and stake it, which is a cross-chain staking protocol, and then I can take that staking LP position and I can put it on Avalanche and use it as an asset in Avalanche Farm. Amazing. No? Okay, I'm very excited about it. But basically, all of these things comprise part of what is becoming a massive global interoperable pool of liquidity. And why that's exciting, we're not stopping here. Crypto is the market that we're starting in, but the changes that cryptocurrency is introducing to market microstructure are going to change every market in the world, in my view. Now, time horizon is what matters here, so the time horizon for this could be very long, not making any claims as to that, but it is my view, having done this in the TradFi world and now as a degenerate ape, that ultimately market microstructure in all markets will look the way it does in this market. So we started with crypto, we're going after precious metals, then we're going after real estate, then we're going after the M2 money supply, and we've kind of already done that with stablecoins. And ultimately, we'll eat global equities markets. So this is my viewpoint. Come find me, tell me why I'm wrong, and hopefully you learned something today. Thanks.